because he doesn't have parents.
Yeah, he doesn't have parents, so he doesn't know where his dad is. His mom passed away. His mom is my mom's sister. So he lived with my parents right out of high school, and then ended up going to the military, served 25 years, 24 years, and then retired. That's how we say we're brothers and sisters. And that's how he introduces us. But he is 49 years old, he's younger than I am. He was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma in October, and he had been feeling sick since March of last year. When they did diagnose him, he just started, in and out of the hospital for issues with his breathing. And the lymphoma, the mass that they found was like in his abdomen, lower abdomen, but it just started affecting his breathing. So he's just been in and out with like pneumonia, whatnot, doing so many endoscopies to figure out what's going on, and each time they would say things were negative. And fast forward, he ended up in the hospital like 3 weeks ago, and this is through BAMC, either Lackland or BAMC. He ended up in the hospital, and then again they transferred him from Lackland to BAMC, and he ended up having, they saw he had, they call it a cavitary lesion in his lung, and I just asked like, where is this at, because I didn't know like where. So they said it's his left upper, up here where he has a lesion that was created from the cancer, so it's kind of like not a hole, but like maybe an indentation, and there is where this fungus grew. So this infection is not this specific infection, but like cancer patients develop infections because they're more susceptible to them because their immune system's low. So he developed that without knowing what was going on. We still thought everything was from like the cancer, but it was from that. So he was in the hospital one night. He had already been there like a week or so when he just like crashed. Like his blood pressure went down. He developed a fever. He was asleep from what I understand. He was bleeding from his mouth. So they had to do like a rapid response on him that night. And this was like at midnight. He ended up having to be intubated, taken to the ICU, and it was a hot mess. It was just really bad. That happened like at midnight on a Monday. So Tuesday I called into work. We were straight over there, like the whole family. I'm talking about maybe 20, 30, 35 of the family members were all there. And
because they told y'all. Yeah.
We didn't know he was gonna make it that night. We just didn't know what was gonna happen that whole day. They had him intubated. They had, like, if you've ever seen like IV poles, there was probably like 5 or 6 IV poles all around him in the room, and each IV pole had like, I don't know, maybe like 6, 8, 10 bags of fluids of all these things that were hanging that he was getting. And so then it was just bad to see him that way. They didn't look like him. And so we were told that they didn't know if his bleeding was from the lung, from that lesion he had, or if it was that he had a tear in his esophagus. So we had to hurry up and give consent for them to do an endoscopy, but to look to see if he had a tear in his esophagus. It turned out he didn't, which was a good thing. So then they ruled that out. The bleeding had to have been from the lungs, which I kind of confirmed today because I asked where did all that blood come from, and they seemed to believe it was from the lesion. So they ended up, his blood pressure, he ended up being in severe septic shock, which is the last stage of shock. His body was just being attacked in every which way. They had to start, his kidneys had taken a hit, so they had to start him on dialysis, and that was just to help him cleanse, I guess, his blood in his body, because it filters it through the dialysis thing, and also to help him urinate because he wasn't through the Foley, which is another issue. And then him being intubated was kind of giving his lungs a rest. regardless, there's just so much details, like, I'm talking about, he's been there like 3 weeks, so 3 weeks worth of just so much details that we were just getting back and forth. So they put him on these 2 strong antibiotics to help kill that fungus because they had done a biopsy and they didn't know what it was that was growing. So they had to put him on everything they could. He was on antifungal antibiotics and along with all these vasopressors or like blood pressure medications. And so everything affects, it's to help him, but it can also hurt him the longer he's on this. So he was on these fungal medications for the past 2 weeks. It was taking long for anything to grow. So the important thing where God has been moving is because they were telling us that he either had this fungus or this one. This fungus was really, really bad, and then this other one, well, they could possibly treat. And so they had him on both for both just in case. Until they waited for something else to grow, and it was leaning more to this one over here that they're able to treat, but it was still very severe. And then we were already, he got through that first night, and he got through the next night, and then they
One night,
after like
2 nights, 3
he
nights,
started getting better
4
and better,
nights,
even though
5
he was
nights,
trapped,
6 nights,
they extubated him.
7 nights.
And okay, so it was like nothing but positive. We weren't accepting anything negative. We didn't want to hear anything that was not going to be like in his favor, because if he got through that first night that we didn't know he was going to make it through, it was just going to be uphill. Like it had to be, we weren't going to accept anything else.
Amen.
So then the doctor, my sister and I were leaving one night, and this is kind of upset me, but I don't know. I did have to call Pastor Don and be like, okay, I don't go there because I don't know. So then,
Wicked.
it was,
Just around somebody wicked.
there's so many residents, doctors, because it's a learning hospital, kind of like the university.
Oh, Pastor, that's getting the microphone.
So,
No, because I wanted to add, that, yeah, we prayed about it because people can discourage you.
yeah.
You have faith. You see why I needed 2 microphones? Hallelujah. No.
Yeah, it was bad. So it was just us walking
It's
out.
discouragement. Yeah, go ahead.
It was just us walking out, like we were already leaving, and this resident made sure he came out and caught us, and he was like, I just wanted to talk to y'all, but I didn't want to talk to y'all in the room. And we were like, okay. And he said, and we didn't share this with anybody in the family, because I just didn't want that doubt to come in, right? So the doctor, that resident doctor asked us, has anybody talked to you about the prognosis? And we were like, I told him, I said, what do you mean? And he says, well, he goes, he's very sick. He's very, very ill. Mind you, he was already extubated, right? He was already extubated, I think, right? And he was already, like, there was improvement. And so we were like, what do you mean? So then he says, he's very, very sick. He has this infection. He goes, and there's been studies and research that, like, if it was this one fungus that it was between the two. One was called Mucorn, and that was a 0 survival rate for that one.
0.
The other one that there were leaving more that he did have, and he does have, he said there's a 20% survival
20.
rate, meaning 80%.
Can you imagine?
He's not going to make
20% survival?
And so, like, my brain's like, he made it. Like, I'm thinking to myself, well, he made it.
He made it.
Like, so what? 20%? Like, I don't care how, like, what your odds are, right? I know who I trust, but just the fact that he came out, to make sure he told us that, like, really made my blood boil. And my sister, I could tell she was a little pissed off. But I was like, okay. And then I had to just be like, no, you know what? That's their job. They're supposed to tell you these things. Make sure you're not, just not facing, like, the facts or whatever.
In denial.
And, that we're not in denial. And that they're residents. They're learning too. So I had to tell my sister that, because I'm like, he had to tell us that. Like, what does he know? He doesn't know what we know, what we believe, and what we've already seen. That's okay. But it still bothered me. So I called Pastor Don. I was like, look, this happened today, and wasn't happy about it. So regardless, that was just something that I didn't like that happened, but it didn't matter because, like I said, we had already lifted him up, we had already prayed for him, we had already seen God move, and we just went forward. So,
And that was Monday.
was it Monday?
This is past Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
And here we are.
So so now they ended up like the next day, like they took him off the vasopressors. He was on 4, and it's bad to be on 4, but if you need it. So he was down to 3, then 2, then and I don't even know if that ever got to 1 or to 2 or 1. Like he was just off of them, and they took him off the dialysis. Also, they took out his NG tube. He was always awake. He was never sedated. He was just like to be calm, like to not move, but he was always trying to communicate on the board, so he was always with it. So now the doctors couldn't believe it, and I would look at their reaction, and a lot of them would come in and be
So
like,
this is him now. Go ahead.
a lot of them would come in and just be in awe and like, not say we can't believe it, but they'd be like,
Today.
you have come a long way and da da da. So it was to see their reaction and how they would speak, just kind of confirmed that this was just God. That God,
Yes.
he was in good hands because those doctors were good doctors. The doctors that were had residents, they all were there watching a certain thing, but they were still watching him. They were watching what was going on. So we're grateful for that. And he ended up being moved to a step-down unit, so he's not even in ICU anymore.
Step down.
And he was just
Step
there
down.
like a day or 2, and then now he's like in another step down.
Another step down.
And he was on vital machines, like a monitor where they check your vitals, like they're just checking his vitals every 3 or 4 hours. And he still has like steps that he has to take before they discharge him home, and he's on one antifungal because they were able to determine it was this one over here and not this one.
Thank
They
you,
moved
Lord.
it out.
Was it the 8?
It's the aspergillosis, but
Check this out.
something grew from that. That's why they determined it.
This fungus that he has, guess who has that fungus? Guess. I have it.
Oh, Mama.
When I got transplanted, I have it. That first year, I had to get antibiotic. I still have it because it doesn't die.
Wow.
Antifungals help
So
you
I'm
for
on-
months and months and months.
Well, 15 years later, I'm still on an antibiotic.
Wow.
But look at me!
Yes,
And I said,
amen.
Linda. So when I talked to him, anyway, go ahead. No, listen. I want to say something. When you talk to him or when I'm going to talk to him?
When you're gonna talk to him. So so he's improving. I just want to thank God.
Linda's the best person to be there. Really.
Yeah, I am.
She was there. I am. No, because when I got before transplant, Linda was there every day in the morning, 5:30, 6 for an hour before she was going to nursing school. She would be there listening to me, just there. She wasn't helping me, but she was just there. No, I mean, she was just every day. Thank you. And I know Eddie appreciates it. But I don't know if you remember or not, but when we prayed those first couple of days, I just saw that. I said, first of all, you have to entrust Eddie to God.
Yes.
He belongs to God.
Amen.
So we entrusted him to God that morning. I said, you know what, we're just going to entrust him. And then the second thing is when I got to pray, I just saw a book with empty pages. So when I see him, I'm going to give him a book. And I said, look, these are all the pages that you have to fill yet because your story's not done yet.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Amen?
Amen.
Amen. I think that's everything. So I was there with him this morning, and he's doing really good. He wants to leave. He kept thinking he was going to leave yesterday.
There's always one
Today,
to
he
leave.
thought he was going to leave tomorrow. Like, okay,
Krista goes in the hospital, and she wants to leave an hour later. She's like, I'm ready to come in now. Who likes to say that? Thank you, Linda, for sharing that.